Welcome, heroes and villains, to the Fjook Enterprises YouTube channel. This is another live conversations with Fjook as I continue my mission to interview all the game masters that will let me interview them that I can. I am unsure how to. I'm always unsure how to introduce my guests, so I'm going to ask my guests to introduce themselves.
Hello. Yes, my name is Jason. Fjook has been, or Fjook even has been a great sort of watcher of live plays of mine and of Becky's as well. But I am one half of ComPlus, which is a charity convention that we do sort of every year to help children in Africa who do gaming. I have also been involved in doing some writing for people like Chaosium and Third Eye Games. I've got another one under wraps that's coming up. And I've done various other things like running games and tournaments at conventions, just regular sort of gaming, especially in lockdown. I've done a lot of that. So yeah, lots of different stuff that I've been doing in the game community this year.
So, how did you get into role-playing games?
So I got into role-playing games quite late. When I was about 18, 19, technically. I was into choose your own adventure games since I was a wee one. So like 6 or 7, I was reading like fighting fantasy and stuff, but I never really got into the role-playing side of things. I had heard of Dungeons and Dragons, but I always kind of thought of it to be a board game because I'd just seen like the board game and like sort of ads for that. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll play it one day. I don't know. But then somebody at uni just said to me, oh, do you want to play Dungeons and Dragons? And I said, well, don't you need like a board for that? Like we haven't even got a table in my room. And they said, no, you just need like some paper and it's all just done in your mind. I'm like, oh, okay. That's interesting. And yeah, I got into it that way. And we actually got like a group going as well, which was nice. And then I kind of slowly got into running games as well, although it was 3.5 edition, so that was a bit of a high learning curve. But yeah, and now I'm at the ripe old age of 30, so I've been doing it for just over 10 years now.
How'd you go from being a player to being a game master?
Me personally, I kind of slowly got to grips with the rules and kind of started getting up the courage to run stuff. It was a bit weird because I tried doing because I didn't quite know how the nuances of actually running a game worked at that point. I just knew the rules. I actually kind of tried writing out basically a module. And I kind of realized, okay, that's not quite how it's going to work. It's going to be like improvising involved and things. So it was just kind of a trial and error thing and doing with experience. The first game I ever ran was online over Roll20, which was terrifying, but it was okay. It was just kind of like a box standard dungeon crawl sort of thing with advanced fighting fantasy rules. And then I ran a game of 3.5 in real life, which, yeah, it was really good fun. Again, it was mostly like a dungeon crawl or like as close to it as you can think of. But yeah, it was good fun. There were some interesting moments in that game. So it was a good kind of like, that was my official, like, it felt like the starting point for me. Like, okay, I've run a game now. I could branch out from there and do Game Master properly.
So, what systems have you played?
Oh gosh, all sorts. I remember you asking the others this. I was trying to remember like all the sort of stuff back in the day that I used to do because I've kind of dipped my feet into a lot of them. I do a few, regularly now, but I've done well. Obviously, there was 3.5 that I started with, and I've moved on to 5th edition, so I have played quite a lot in that, especially last year. I've played in various one-shots of things like Vampire the Masquerade, Mage the Awakening, Fate Accelerated, into Dresden Files before it became Accelerated, Hollow Earth Expedition, Savage Worlds, oh yeah, of course, Call of Cthulhu, big one, and Corporation. I imagine there's more that I'm forgetting as well. Advanced Fighting Fantasy. So yeah, I've tried to experiment with a lot of different systems, as you can probably tell, but it's only kind of been this year where I've started settling into like one or two that I'm really comfortable with and really enjoy running in, playing in, etc. So yeah, lots of variety.
Before I forget, do you have any common house rules?
Yeah, I guess so. So I think other people have mentioned this as well, but in terms of things like rules, I tend to be somebody who, you've got to kind of adhere to the rules as much as you can. But if something happens that's, say, out of the rules jurisdiction, you just kind of have to either make something up or come to a compromise, and then the DM or keeper or whatever, their decision is final. With things like, I more as a kind of advice than a house rule, I try to encourage my players to describe what they're doing, and then I would say, okay, make me I don't know, a spot hidden roll, something like that, rather than they just say, oh, I'd like to make a spot hidden roll, with no kind of premise. But it's, yeah, I would say that's more kind of general advice rather than like, you must adhere to this at all times or else I'm throwing you out, sort of thing.
So, are there any systems that you refuse to run?
um, not any that I adamantly would refuse. But again, I think the others have mentioned a couple of horrendously sounding games. Games I'm put off by that I wouldn't really want to run unless somebody really asked me, maybe. Shadowrun. Also Mythorog. I don't think I'd want to run that for various reasons, like the system and the premise behind it just don't appeal to me at all. And maybe kind of superhero games in general, like they sounded quite cool for a while, and I have played in a couple, but unless maybe it was Fate Accelerated, I probably wouldn't run a superhero game in general because it's just not my favorite like genre particularly.
Are there, switching gears slightly, are there any systems that you enjoy running?
Well, yes, you know that very much. I've definitely learned this year that Call of Cthulhu is my favorite to run by far. It's something that I'm the most comfortable running. It's for me, it's the easiest, I guess, call it easiest in terms of things like world building. I really love researching stuff about either the setting that you're in, say it's the 1920s, or if it's a Gaslight, which is a bit earlier in like the Victorian era and things. Um, Whereas, other sort of systems I have been comfortable running in the past. So I've run quite a lot of fifth edition and Corporation, but they're not my favorite. They're fun and I enjoy them, but yeah, Cthulhu's the one up there, like the icing on the cake for me. It's my favorite.
Are there any moments of the players surprising you that are a fond memory?
Oh, plenty, plenty. I mean, Becky in our group, she surprises me all the time because she doesn't kind of think very linear. She comes up with these sort of, dare I say, out of the box ideas. But I was just thinking back to that kind of original game that I ran for some people back in the day. A really nice little memory of that was when one of the players they kind of peeked around the corner, and I think there was like a water elemental that was lingering, and they thought, oh, okay, how do we get past that? And then they thought, I know, I'm going to, because I think they were playing either a sorcerer or some kind of magic user. They decided to make another water elemental to kind of woo it and distract it and seduce it and make it fall in love. And I thought that was a hilarious idea. And they rolled really well and it worked fine and they got past it no problem. And I just kind of fleshed out this thing of, oh yeah. So they're just sort of sitting together and kind of schmoozing up to each other. And yeah, that was hilarious.
Are there any moments of everything going to plan that you would like to discuss?
Yeah, because of course there are many times if you run games, you know that players make it so things don't go according to plan. But yeah, I think I don't want to say any spoilers, of course, especially if people want to be either playing in Masks of Nyarlathotep or watching, for example. But definitely the end of the first chapter, I definitely felt like, yeah, I've kind of put the planning in, but also then things did go according to plan. The players weren't kind of, causing this huge sort of uproar and messing things up, which, it's fine if they do, but it just so happened they didn't. So there were quite a lot of moving pieces that I had to kind of coordinate like different groups of NPCs, for example, as well as what the PCs were doing, things they could interact with. There was kind of like an agenda as well of like, okay, things happening at certain times of the evening. So all that, and yeah, it was really good, and I thought it was really solid. And again, the players didn't really do anything that I didn't really think, oh God, I never thought they'd do that. So yeah, I was really happy with that. It was a very sort of satisfactory climax to that chapter.
As the penultimate question,
Mhm.
any advice to your fellow game masters out there?
Yeah. Again, I know that a few people have said like, you know, kind of trying to get people into running games and stuff. I think one thing that again I've learned over the past couple of years is even though you're the game master or whatever you want to call yourself, and you're running the game for the players, you should still be having fun as well. So if you're kind of coming up with these sessions for your players, but you're finding it either it's hard work or you don't really want to do it, you need to kind of think, well, why? Why am I not enjoying doing it? Or if you're at the table, you know, why am I not enjoying the game as it is? And you need to kind of address that, because I've had sort of occasions where I've been burnt out before as a DM, so I've had to kind of either stop altogether or just be a player for a bit. And it's hard because it's horrible feeling like you don't want to do it anymore. It's a horrible feeling. So yeah, make sure that you're having fun as well.
Before we get into the final question, I just want to make this announcement that there are about 8 ways to say Fjook, and I'm okay with all 8.
Okay.
As the final question that I probably should have asked Becky, Ron, and Phil as well, but I didn't think of it till after I interviewed them. Is there anything that you are part of that you would like to shout out at this time?
Yeah, sure. So with the Complus thing, if you go to complus.live, that will kind of give you a lot more information about what it's actually about. We did do our last convention back in May, which was kind of a change of when we normally do it. It's normally sort of around October time. Reason being because of lockdown and COVID and things kind of going up in the air. But we raised a good amount of money. So now we're, I think, over £9,000 overall to this charity. But also, if you go onto Becky's Twitch stream for Prizefighter TV every Thursday evening UK time, she's also been raising some more money for the charity through her prize fighting software. So you basically just join. You don't need to pay or anything like that, or even control anything, and you fight it out in the arena. So yeah, it's great fun. It's a great thing. She's dedicated to doing pretty much every week without fail, except maybe now it's Christmas. So definitely get involved with that. With our live games, if you go to Pair of Geeks 2 on YouTube, we're running, of course, my game Massive Nihilatotep at the minute, which I'm sure is going to go on for a good 6 months or so longer. We've got a few smaller games going on as well, like Ronnie's Savage Worlds game. I think it's coming to an end tonight, come to think of it. Keep an eye out as well for any of my writing coming out. If you go to Third Eye Games on Drive-Thru RPG, for example, you'll see a little supplement that I helped write out. But the Chaosium one, I'm still waiting for that to be published. So I'm assuming I'll be plugging that a lot when that comes out. But yeah, those are my plugs.
Thank you for joining us as we are live at this time. And I would like to especially thank my guest for joining me, and do all the YouTube things, as well as check out the links to all the things that my guest has shouted out.
No worries.